Hi, I'm Jay Burry, and welcome to the August 2020 Birders Roundtable. We're talking tonight with Tom Kerr, Marcy Jacklin, and Marcus Rosted. Hey, welcome everybody. It's good to see you.
Good to see you, Jay.
Good to see you, Jay.
Good to see everyone.
So, all right, well, listen, here's what I want to talk about tonight. I want to start by talking a little bit about bobolinks, a little bit about goldfinches. Then I want to get into migration, what's going on now, and maybe we can talk about the Whimbrel, maybe piping plovers, and just generally, that's the big picture where I want to go. Does that work for everyone?
Sure.
Okay. It's been an interesting summer so far. We're about mid-August now, or a little bit earlier than that. And, life has changed with this COVID stuff. We're living with it for 6 months now. It affects our daily schedules. It affects our ability to look at birds, especially looking at birds in groups. One of the things that I've noticed this summer is one of my favorite birds, bobolinks. There's a couple of places in Western New York that they're known to nest. We've all seen them. One of my favorite places is Knox Farm. One of the things I've noticed this year is there seems to be a less population of bobolinks in most places that I bird. I don't know if you guys have experienced that or not, or any thoughts you might have about bobolinks.
I drive out through Wyoming County every day, so I see them out there. And it's the same thing every year that they try to nest in the fields and the pastures, and then they get mowed. They get mowed the first week of June.
Well, that's a huge issue.
Right. And, that's tough. There are a couple fields I do know of where people haven't mowed. Or they mow in a way that's a little better for them. They mow strips at a time instead of doing the whole field at once. So that doesn't clear out the whole field, the bobolinks. I did see there's a field on around the corner from Beaver Meadow, really, on the other side of Route 77, where there's huge longhorn cows that are just grazing in a big pasture, and they were there this summer. So I saw a bunch of fledglings. So that was good.
They have such a beautiful sound. But I know that even at Knox Farm, it's better now than it used to be. But they mowed about 2 weeks ago. And there were still some nesting bobolinks out there. Well, anyway, what I'm thinking about, I don't know how the rest of you think about it. I don't know how it is in Canada, Marcy, but it'd be nice to figure out how to do a conservation campaign around bobolinks. Obviously, there's a lot of birds. Almost all of our birds are in trouble. But just getting information out there about bobolinks is something I'd like to figure out how to do. What's going on in Canada, Marcy? See a lot of bobolinks?
No, now that you mention it, not quite as many as usual. But I know Birds Canada does have a campaign aimed at, educating people about bobolinks and their habitats. And so I don't know how successful that's been, but I'm working with Parks Canada on one project where they have a field and they're nesting in there. So and the idea is to cultivate that field specifically for bobolinks, which is great.
Maybe we can find that Birds Canada program and link it and put it on our Birds of Niagara Facebook page and website.
Okay.
Marcus, what's your experience with bobolinks these days?
Yeah, I mean, now that you mention it, I feel like I haven't run into as many bobolinks this year as years past. I don't know what if that's a function of the bobolinks themselves or where I've just been birding recently. But my favorite place to watch bobolinks is out at the John White Wildlife Management Area, just down the road from the Iroquois National Wildlife Refuge. That's probably where I've experienced the most bobolink out there. And it's a pretty good field for them.
So bobolinks nest in tall grassy fields. They're a great bird to have around, and I just hope that we can figure out a way to appreciate them better. I know us birders do, but as a society, that's one species of birds I'd like to find ways to love a little bit more.
I just learned that they're one of the longest distance migrants for songbirds. So they go to the grasslands in South America. So I was surprised they flew so far, which obviously has some risks with it too.
It's amazing how far they fly. And so many of the birds that we experience here in Western New York come from very distant places. And we'll talk about that a little bit more up ahead. I just want to touch a little bit on another species. It's very common. People are seeing it now, which is goldfinches. Goldfinches, those little yellow and black birds. And they make a really pretty trilling sound as they fly in these kind of, but they're nesting now, and they're one of the late nesters. What's up with that?
Goldfinches are one bird that I have been seeing a lot. They've been frequenting the feeder back here, especially recently. It seems like, yeah, they've been definitely showing off that bright yellow. It's definitely a welcome sight.
I think they're one of the only birds around here that's a strict vegetarian. They only eat seeds, and so that's why their nesting season is later in the summer. So they have the seed crop that's sprouting. So that also saves them from brown-headed cowbirds, because a fledgling brown-headed cowbird can't survive on seeds alone. So brown-headed cowbirds avoid them, and it's later in the season, so the brown-headed cowbirds are done.
You can see them a lot, the goldfinches now, on thistles. They're eating both the thistle seed and gathering the down, and that they build their nests out of that down.
Once you clue into their song, so it's a good song to learn, because all of a sudden you'll notice they're all over the place. Yeah, so that's what I've found, is it's one of the songs you really need to learn.
And I think anecdotally, again, we're really loaded with them this year. I want to talk about migration. Marcy, you were touching on it about how far the bobolinks migrate. We have a lot of birds coming through here now. Then we want to talk about the kind of shorebirds that we're seeing, and even Whimbrels we're seeing now. And those are amazing migrants.
Yeah, I mean, I was out. I stopped over at LaSalle Park just this afternoon, and there was a ruddy turnstone hanging out on the break wall, and it was super cool to see. So yeah, they're on their way. They're coming through.
I've been stopping at the retention ponds on Ridgely Road behind Target and Best Buy, which is kind of an interesting spot because it'll be full of water some days and completely dry the next. So if it's dry, if it's a mud flat, you do get a lot of shorebirds there. And so it's been mostly solitary sandpipers. There was a lesser yellow legs a few days ago. I check that every day because it is like a trap. There's nothing around. So if a migrant's coming through, this is the only thing they have for miles. And so a couple of years ago, there was a white-rumped sandpiper there, and there have been pectoral sandpipers. So it's down the street from my house pretty much. So it's a good spot to go when I just want to go birding for maybe half an hour, go stand there. And people must drive by and think, I'm like, what is that guy doing? Looking into this like ditch. Yeah, this gross ditch where all the water from that parking lot, that huge shopping plaza on Niagara Falls Boulevard, where Target and Best Buy and Lowe's, everything, all that, just whenever it rains, it just drains into this pond. So
all the garbage that comes along with the parking lot.
I know.
It's so sad to see all those.
I feel like
running between the trash.
It's sad. I think it's more sad for us. I think they never look sad. It's sad because it ruins your photo. It's sad because it stinks.
More of a reflection
they do clean it up.
of us. Yeah,
I know. It's sad because you feel the guilt. But they're there. There's always something there in that pond. Someone photographed a green heron there today, and I still haven't seen one there, so I was surprised about that.
Tom, getting back to something you said, which is somebody looked at you wondering what the hell this fool is doing out there, right? Well, I've got some stories. Tom, I was with you last year. We were in Texas. We were sitting in a parking lot, and we had a group. You had a group, and parakeets. And
yeah,
we went nuts over them, and you especially went nuts over them. And we gathered crowds of people stopping in the street. We're in a parking lot in a shopping mall, and people were saying, the parakeets, they're here all the time. Tom brought us a love and awareness of these particular birds, which are a big part of his life. He was going nuts looking at it. He had tears in his eyes. He was so happy, singing songs about these beautiful parakeets. Anyway, so yes, Tom.
go to Sparrow right now. See if we get barn owls from the parking lot. I do have a soft spot in my heart for parrots. But yeah, that was something else. That was just so cool because there were so many. Yeah, and it's these things we don't think about that attract them. The reason they're in that parking lot is because there was a big fountain. So there was water. That was it. That was the only thing. They spend the day flying around that part of South Texas, and at night they come and they all bathe in the fountain, and they sit on the wires, and they all fly into the trees at night. And we didn't even know the first night we were there in Texas. We ate at a restaurant in that plaza, but it was dark, so we didn't know. But you could hear them walking around, and I'm like, I wonder if those are the parakeets. But you can't see anything because it was dark.
When we find rock doves and pigeons in our parking lots up in our region, we're just that's the rock doves or pigeons. That's what these parrots and parakeets were like to the people who were living there. And we were just astounded. Thank you, Tom. Listen,
It's my pleasure.
Migration, I want to just go back to the Whimbrel a little bit. Migration doesn't have any political borders, Canada, U.S., so birds come across these borders. And Marcy, we so much miss being on the other side of the border for 6 months now.
We miss you.
We know we're sharing birds. But the Whimbrel is a bird that nests in the...
You're not sharing the Whimbrel.
They're out there. People are seeing them right now. So you go out and look. You might see.
I think there's one still left.
Okay.
You might be able to get it from a boat as long as you don't come on shore. They nest in the Arctic Circle, above the Arctic Circle in Alaska, and then there's a population that nests on the southwestern part of the Hudson Bay.
And they're coming through here now on their way, and some of them go deep into Central and South America. Some go way down the Pacific and Atlantic coast. So birds are coming through here now. The international borders don't matter. What matters is how people take care of them. The Whimbrel's a great story, and we have so many birds, especially these shorebirds that we're talking about now, that are these global wanderers in a sense, hemispheric wanderers. Tom, I want to go back to a story that we talk about a lot with this piping plover. I know that you were recently on Lake Ontario. Tell us the story.
So my friends Bill and Steve do a podcast called The Field Guide. They do a monthly episode on. Marcus is nodding his head. It's a good podcast.
It is, yeah.
They do a monthly podcast on usually a really interesting topic, and it could be from anything. Their podcast this month was on Indian pipe, the parasitic flowering plant that we have in the Northeast. So that was their topic this week. They were actually invited by New York State Parks to go and do their podcast episode for August on the piping plovers that are nesting at Sandy Pond Outlet and on the eastern shore of Lake Ontario. So it was a ways out. But we drove out to see them, and when we got there, we were told that there was one nest. They fledged 2 chicks from the nest, and both parents and one of the chicks had already departed. So when we got there, there was only 1 chick left on the beach, and so we had to walk down the beach and find it. But we found it. It was sitting with a semi-pollinated sandpiper. It was following that, and they were hanging out. So what we learned, I don't want to spoil the whole episode. If you're watching this, I think you should go and check out their episode when it's released. But it's on, you can find it on iTunes and Spotify, and their website, I think you can just search the Field Guides podcast and you'll find them. But we found it. We learned about that there's piping plovers nesting on all 5 Great Lakes now. This is the only pair that's nesting on the New York Great Lakes, if that makes sense. So they're on Lake Erie, but not in New York. Yep. They're on Lake Ontario in New York.
Where are they?
And they're also they are in Presque Isle State Park.
Do you know the story?
And there might be
this year.
I haven't heard anything, but it's usually in a spot where nobody can see them because they do have big parts of that park closed off to the public during the summer for nesting birds. So if if birders aren't reporting them, you don't hear about it. They usually let everyone know how they did after the season's over. So this nest was only accessible by boat. You could walk out there, but it's a long walk, and so we went out by boat to see them.
Presque Isle,
No,
Lake Ontario, Lake Ontario.
Lake Ontario.
Yep.
I mean, in New York, there's hundreds of piping plover pairs, but they're just all on Long Island. So these are the only Great Lakes ones.
Yeah, and that's not historically true. There used to be a lot more.
Right. So they like sandy beaches with dunes that have less than 10% plant coverage. So we don't have a lot of those on the Great Lakes. And where there is appropriate habitat for them, they have been trying to nest. And it's tough because you have to balance the human needs for the beach with the bird needs for the beach. And and they also have to be found. Like someone has to see them there trying to nest to know that we need to do something about it. So piping plovers are tough. It's one of the birds that we conflict with the most.
Well, listen, I want to start wrapping this up now. I do want to talk about what's coming next, and we're, like I said, mid August. We have a good end of the summer. Can you guys all help give us a little wrap up? Marcus, can I start with you? Put you on the spot. What kind of things should we be expecting in the next 30 days or so? Audio.
I mean, I'm still going to keep a lookout on more of those shorebirds coming through. I still have yet to see the Whimbrel. I was deciding whether or not I was going to take the trip up today, but we decided to take the shorter trip to LaSalle. It ended up working out with the Ruddy Turnstone, but I still need to see the Whimbrel, and I'm still excited for more shorebirds to come through. And I've been, just like Tom, excited to see them right over here in Tonawanda at the retention ponds behind Best Buy over here. So it's been cool to see the shorebirds, and it's great to see them when they're right in your neighborhood, especially during COVID times.
I'm gonna. Yes.
Your audio cut out there, Tom.
Oh, I'm gonna head over to the retention ponds right after this. So if anyone wants to join me.
Marcy, what kind of things do you think we should be looking forward to?
Well, warbler migration is going to start too. So, I mean, in general, just migration and so it gets to be a real fun time of the year again. It's almost like spring, but not quite as good and more challenging too, I would say, for identification.
Different plumage.
Yeah. The molts and the into the alternate plumages and into basic plumage, I should say. Yeah. So yeah, it's going to be fun.
We can still hear their songs at night. They're migrating. We can see the migration on radar. So we'll be looking forward to looking for those things too. But at night when they're migrating, you see it on the radar. Sometimes you can go outside and listen to the sky, and you'll hear bird song. Tom, what's next for us birders?
Fall migration. I mean, it's what I'm thinking about now. Looking for the songbirds coming through. Looking for the shorebirds too. One thing I'm going to look for this year is last year we saw a Connecticut warbler at Beaver Meadow in late September, and we found one day, and then the next day there were two that looked to be different from photographs. So when late September comes, I will be hitting that spot hard. Every day, every morning, trying to find one. It was one of the luckiest birds I ever found. I got a picture of it with my cell phone, like a good enough ID shot. And it's one of those birds, like you work in a nature center, you always hope to find so you can get the text alert out, and then people will jump in their cars and drive out. And there'll be all sorts of people birding in your nature center, and it's a good feeling. So hopefully we can find another one this year. Or something like it.
Well, my next month's issues, I'm a birder, I'm a butterfly guy, a bee guy, native plant guy. I think we're going to have a lot of conservation fights that we're still going to be very much engaged with. I know, Marcy, you're dealing with Waverly Woods still. If you don't know about Waverly Woods, you can find it on our website. Governor's Bond Act restored Mother Nature, which was a big restoration potential for our region, has been dropped this time. We have issues on the outer harbor, all along our shorelines. And so the fight will go on for that. And you want to keep seeing birds, you've got to get engaged in trying to save habitat. And so we'll keep you all in touch with that. And we're doing the Birds of Niagara. We've had a couple of meetings, and we're still scheduled for next Valentine's Day weekend. Whether we do it virtually or we get you out of the Niagara River in the middle of the winter, we might have a boat out there this year. Anyway, stay tuned. We have a great keynote speaker that's agreed to speak. I'm not going to release his name yet, but you'll enjoy hearing him and hearing about him. Anyway, thank you all so much for being on the Birders Roundtable this August. And hopefully we can do this again in about a month.